just a call to kind of reiterate the differences between business standard and business premium, and the benefits for premium, and doing more for less, as it says there, with Microsoft licenses, because it's clear from our customer base, not everyone knows what the licenses cover, and obviously other services that are within, or benefits within that license. I think that's what this call is all about, isn't it? So it's not something that, is not beneficial to people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, it's just kind of just reiterating like the fact that Microsoft 365 is more than Office. You can do so much with it. And especially nowadays, with price rises and everything's in shortage at the moment: time, money, even skills. So Microsoft 365 can go a long way to helping organizations such as yours, again, do more with less.
Yeah. Well, you summed it up. We can all go, can't we?
Hey, beautiful. Fantastic. Right. Should we get cracking, or do you want to give it another minute or so?
So this is what a good question, actually, because I've got one customer that two of them supposed to come on today, but they messaged me. They were actually in the office at 1:30. We had a review meeting with them, and they, because of the travel going back, they're not going to be able to make it in on time. But I noticed this call is being recorded. Is that something that I can get so I can forward it on to them?
Yep, absolutely. Yes. So the call will be recorded, and we can get a copy of the recording to you afterwards to send on.
Perfect. Good stuff. All right. Thank you.
Marvelous. Excellent. Well, in that case, we should probably get cracking. So first of all, thank you all so much for giving up some of your valuable time to come and have a chat with us and the great guys from Digital Origin to talk to you about how you can do more with less with Microsoft 365. And like I mentioned earlier, I know we've got a couple of people that have just joined. Again, the focus of this session is to illustrate the fact that Microsoft 365 is more than just Office, that there are lots of areas that Microsoft 365 can address in organizations such as yours, from improving things such as productivity, collaboration, and even security. Now, we've got a action-packed session lined up with lots of stuff to talk about. This is just some of the examples of some things that we're going to have a chat about as we go through. So the current state of business and some challenges that organizations face, what M365 can do to help, enabling better collaboration with things such as Microsoft Teams, securing remote access, protecting identity within your workplace, protecting against cyber threats, securing devices, and of course, Defender for Business. Now, all of the tools that we're talking about today are included as part of Microsoft 365 Business Premium. Now, some of you might be on different versions of Microsoft 365. Maybe some of you are on Business Standard. Maybe even some of you are already using M365 Business Premium. But there might be some features in here that maybe you didn't know you had, or maybe some features in here that you'd like to start using. And if that's the case, then once again, reach out to the guys at Digital Origin. They will be able to help you get started with those tools. Or if you see stuff in here which isn't available to you because you might be on Business Standard, then again, they can have that conversation with you about getting you the tools that you need to help your business succeed. Now, you'll notice that Q&A is right at the end. That doesn't mean you've got to wait until the end of the session to ask any questions. I'd never do that to you. So you feel free to ask any questions as we go through. You can just take yourself off mute and jump in with your question if you want. Alternatively, if you don't want to do that, you can put your questions into the chat, and we'll get to the questions as we go through. So I think that's enough preamble. Let's have a look at what today looks like. And I probably don't need to bang the drum too much on how much things have changed over the last few years. We've seen the effects of COVID have one of the most dramatic shifts in how business gets done around the world. It has transformed how business is done, where people work from, devices we use. It has brought about significant challenges in organizations, especially around things such as productivity, collaboration, and security. With more and more people working flexible, hybrid, and remote, that's brought challenges around things such as collaboration and communication. How do our teams that might be separated Traditionally, we used to all be in the office. Now everyone's out and about. How do we make sure that everyone can work effectively together? And how do we make sure that when people are working from different devices, different locations, different networks, how do we make sure that our workforce can still continue to work in a safe and secure manner? One of the things that definitely came out of COVID was a huge spike in cyber attacks. You might have seen some of that stuff on the news, but just because COVID has pretty much, no, it hasn't gone away. You know, COVID hasn't gone away. My business partner literally had it last week. But COVID is not the global pandemic that it was. But that doesn't mean that cybersecurity has also fallen away. Cybersecurity threats have continued to increase, and we'll talk more about that later and what M365 can do to help your business weather that particular storm. So again, just some of those challenges: employees working from multiple locations, a multitude of personal devices. So here's a question for you guys. Within your business, do you employ a BYOD policy, bring your own device? Do you let people use maybe their own laptops or tablets, or maybe you let people use their own personal mobile phones for things such as email? And if you do, are you doing anything to protect those devices? Because again, with people using personal mobile devices for work purposes, whilst there are some significant benefits to the organization, device procurement, for example, the fact that you don't have to go and buy your staff their own company mobile phones. But what about the data on those devices? If one of your employees was to leave your business, what's to stop them walking away with reams of corporate data on their personal mobile device? That has been a significant challenge. And of course, tying into all the other challenges, such as the increased phishing and ransomware attacks that we've seen. Now, Satya Nadella, Microsoft's CEO, recently gave a speech talking about this whole do more with less concept. The whole idea that organizations in the past that may have focused on the best of breed model, and when we talk best of breed, that is when a company or an organization just cherry picks certain solutions and products. They don't necessarily buy a package of solutions. They just buy a little bit from here, a little bit from there, a little bit from there. Now, whilst that doesn't seem like necessarily a bad thing to do, it does introduce things such as cost and complexity into the organization. Now, in terms of digital transformation, especially around security, cost and complexity are two of the biggest enemies, because we see company costs skyrocketing to keep up with these best of breed technologies. We also see the complexity increase, which again makes things more difficult to manage, configure, and deploy. That can create gaps in visibility, which you absolutely do not want in your organization. If you could buy a single package for a single monthly cost of around £19.92 a month that dealt with all of your company's potential challenges around collaboration, security, productivity, wouldn't that just be an ideal world? And of course, that is the world that products like Microsoft 365 were built for. Now, this is everything that Microsoft sells from an SMB perspective when it comes to M365. And as you can see, we've got products such as Business Basic. Just a quick rundown of some of these products. Sorry, excuse me. Bit of frog in my throat there. M365 Business Basic, which is just the cloud services. So things such as Exchange, Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, that sort of thing. Now, Business Basic is a great product, but it doesn't include the desktop applications, things such as Word, PowerPoint, and Excel that can be downloaded and used on the device offline. It doesn't include those. You can use things such as the web-based versions of Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, but you would need to be connected to the internet in order to do so. Now, for some organizations, this might suit the bill, but many organizations do see the benefit of being able to have the applications native on the device. So even if you don't have an internet connection, you can still be productive and get work done, which leads us to probably one of the most popular SKUs, which is M365 Business Standard. Now, you can see Business Standard includes all of the same services that you get with Business Basics, so all of the cloud services, but then it also includes all of the desktop applications as well. So like I said, things such as Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. Now, with these desktop applications, you can install these desktop apps onto 15 devices per user. So every user can install these applications on up to 15 devices. I'll tell you how that breaks down. That would be 5 laptops, desktops, or Macs, plus 5 phones, plus 5 tablets per user. So it's 5 of each device type. And that does bring about a lot of flexibility for our workforce, because regardless of what device you have on you when you leave the house that morning, whether it's just your mobile phone or your tablet or even your laptop, you have got your entire office with you wherever you go. But the product that we are going to focus on primarily for this session is we're going to be looking at the benefits of Business Premium. Like I mentioned, this product only costs £19.92 per user per month. And as you can see, it includes all of the same desktop applications and cloud services as Business Standard. But the thing where it really stands apart is the advanced security and device management tools. Now, for those of you that are utilizing Business Standard at the moment, the question I would ask you to look into is how much money are you spending on potential third-party security solutions? Because Business Standard is a great product, but it doesn't come with the advanced security and device management tools. Now, I wouldn't assume that anyone here isn't using any kind of security. You're probably getting it from somewhere. But how much does that security cost? How much are you spending on third-party security solutions? And could that be consolidated into something like M365 Business Premium? So the cost of Business Standard on a monthly basis is around £11.28 per user per month. To go to Business Standard, that is going to be an £8.64 difference. Now, the question is, could you go out and buy enterprise grade equivalents of all of these features right here? And we're going to talk about what these do in a bit more detail in just a moment. But could you buy enterprise grade security products like all of these for less than £8.64? I'm not going to leave you in suspense. The answer is no, you can't, which means that M365 Business Premium can represent a significant benefit of consolidating a lot of your security costs into a single monthly cost and packaged product. Now, again, one of the awesome things around Microsoft 365 is the amount of hidden gems that it has within. A lot of people know Microsoft 365, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, that sort of stuff. But there's a lot of other really intelligent and hugely impactful tools that are also included. For example, you've got intelligent tools such as Power Apps, for example, being able to. So I don't know if anyone on this call is skilled in building applications from the ground up, coding, that sort of thing. And if you're not, then don't worry, because with tools like Power Apps, you can build your own custom applications such as web apps, iOS or Android applications very simply without any kind of technical skills, without any kind of coding knowledge. Power Apps has been designed to be a low or no code tool, which allows you to build powerful applications for your business from Microsoft 365. And also alongside these powerful tools, you've got things such as Power Automate. Now, I'm sure all of us within our organizations, there are some kind of very kind of dull or monotonous or repetitive processes that need to be done maybe once a week, once a month, processes that no one really likes doing, but it's important, it's got to be done for the business, and it's a repetitive task. Well, you can automate certain business processes utilizing tools like Power Automate. So you don't have to spend your time on these monotonous tasks. You can get Power Automate to do those for you. So that's just a couple of examples of some of the hidden gems that are included. One more, which I absolutely love and I use myself, is this one here, which is called Planner. Now, there is a similar tool out there on the market, which some of you might have heard of, which is called Asana. Now, Asana really kind of rose in popularity over COVID and the pandemic, a lot of organizations were very concerned how they were going to manage their teams and their projects and their tasks now that everyone was working from home and no one was in the office, and then we couldn't huddle together. I couldn't explain to my team what it is I need doing and watch their progress. Asana was a tool that allowed business leaders, team leaders, project managers, that sort of thing, to be able to manage their team's tasks. But a lot of these people that went out and bought Asana didn't realize that Microsoft 365 already had a tool included which could do all of that stuff. So if you find yourself managing, again, teams or projects or certain tasks which involve a multitude of different people doing different things, all to the same ends of getting that project complete, things such as Planner is a great way of being able to assign tasks and manage them at scale. You don't have to be emailing people every 5 minutes or phoning them up asking, hey, how far have you got along with this project? Have you done this? Have you finished this? Have you started that? Because you can see all of the progress people are making in Planner. It's some awesome stuff. And again, all of this is included within Microsoft 365. Like I said, not a lot of people know about these tools. And again, if you want to know more, if you want to start using some of these tools within your organization, again, reach out to your guys over at Digital Origin. They will be able to steer you in the right direction. And of course, the security features as well with M365 Business Premium. This is one of the things that really stands this apart. And we're going to talk about some of these security features as we go through. But Microsoft found by, again, with surveys and speaking to customers around what do a lot of customers want, especially in small to medium business customers. And they found that 64% of SMB buyers prefer to purchase software solutions as a package or as a suite of solutions that meet all their business needs. So well over half of the SMB buyers don't want to be buying solutions just like a little one from here, one from here. They're not looking to go best of breed and have lots of different solutions to manage within their tenant. Most people within SMB would like to just have a single package that does most things they need for their organization and comes in at a single monthly cost. And again, that is the world that Microsoft 365 is built for. Designed to help organizations save costs by consolidating apps into that single suite, increasing security confidence of customers by, again, making sure devices, data, identities are kept safe. And of course, improving productivity. And with things like Microsoft Teams, which I'm sure a lot of you are already using, you can enable 51% more collaboration and reduce travel expenses by around 32% by utilizing Teams. Now, of course, you can go out and buy equivalents for almost everything these days. And again, considering the things that a lot of organizations need within their IT infrastructure, things such as single sign-on, conditional access, multi-factor authentication, endpoint antivirus protection, you can go out and buy all of that stuff from third parties. There's nothing to stop you from doing that. But if you do, you would be looking at approximately around £50 per user per month. And that's not including the costs of the whole TCO side of things, the amount of time that goes into managing, configuring and patching this stuff. Again, time is money. And again, if we were to add that on, it would be significantly more. Whereas Microsoft 365 can provide all of these customer requirements, again, for a bargain price of £19.92 per user per month. So again, really good pricing that we can offer. So the first area I'd like to talk about is improving productivity with hybrid work. Now, I'm not going to teach anyone here how to suck eggs and start explaining what Microsoft Teams is. I'm sure a lot of you have been using Teams for a while now, and that's absolutely fantastic. Teams has really transformed the way that we work. I mean, the fact that we are holding meetings like this on Teams, again, we weren't doing this 4 years ago. We weren't doing sessions like this on this kind of scale channel online. This would always have been an in-person event, but Teams has really transformed the industry. And again, not just for meetings, but again, the ability to collaborate. A lot of people often ask me, what is the difference between products like Microsoft Teams and other competitors such as Zoom, for example? And we all know Zoom. Again, Zoom soared to popularity during the pandemic, and Zoom is a great tool. Don't get me wrong, Zoom is a great meetings tool. Zoom is a great meeting tool, but Teams is a great collaboration tool. That's the difference. Teams is built for collaboration, whereas Zoom was designed for meetings. And whilst meetings are important, Teams can do that, but the collaborative element of Teams is where it stands apart. The ability to be able to share documents, to be able to co-author, the fact that I can work on a document at the same time as my colleagues whilst we speak and see each other. It's that level of collaboration that stands Teams apart. But that doesn't mean that's all that Teams can do. Teams is great at collaboration, but did you know you could also use Teams as a platform? And again, a lot of us here probably use Teams for things such as meetings, chat, sharing documents, that sort of stuff. But did you know you could download and deploy and run applications directly within Teams? There is an app store within Teams where you can download hundreds of third-party applications and use them directly in your Teams environment. You can even use things such as Power Apps that we mentioned earlier to build your own custom applications to run within Teams. Now, why would anyone want to do that? Why would you run an application or a platform directly within Teams? Well, one of the answers is that it's quicker and easier to get the information that you need rather than having to skip around to multiple different applications to get the data, information, whatever it is it might be. You can access all of that from within Teams, making the workforce more efficient and saving time. And let's be honest, Teams is one of those applications which is open on our desktops all day, every day anyway. So why not get it doing more than just meetings and chat? Why not transform Teams into a hub of productivity? For example, we've got an example of a customer here that used Power Apps to build a application for their customer support team directly within Teams. The whole idea is this customer support team, when they're on the phone to the customer, and again, they can do all their phone calls through Teams. When they're on the phone to a customer, they can have customer information, product and pricing information, all that sort of stuff at their fingertips. They don't need to be skipping around to applications to get all of this different information because it's all there within their single environment. And effectively, for this customer support team, they probably don't have to use any other applications in their day-to-day basis, arguably maybe Outlook, but that's about it. Outlook and then Teams, because they've got their application and their resources all within here. And it's not just for third party or custom applications. You can add first party Microsoft stuff in here. So I don't know how many of us on this call utilize things such as Power BI, for example. And if you don't use Power BI, it's a brilliant tool that can give you data and analytical information about your organization, allowing you to keep your finger on the pulse around what is going on within your business. Now, rather than having to navigate to the Power BI app and find the relevant dashboard and the data, you can have dashboards directly within Teams channels. So literally with a click of a mouse, you can see the latest data around your business, whether it's sales or whether it's pipeline or incoming versus outgoing calls. All that information is available, like I said, at your fingertips. And of course, don't forget, you know that you can use Teams on your mobile phone. We all know that. That means that this kind of information would be available to you on your mobile phone, wherever you are. You want to check out how your company is doing whilst you're traveling in and out of the office? Well, just jump onto Teams, jump into the channel, and you can see that live data being presented to you. So incredibly powerful stuff that we can do with Teams, and that's only going to improve in the future. I'm sure a lot of you have seen really the massive rise in artificial intelligence over the last 12 months with things such as ChatGPT and the recently announced Microsoft Copilot, which is going to be introducing even more AI functionality into M365 applications. So the future is incredibly bright when it comes to these tools and the integration of some of the most exciting technology we've seen in a very long time. And in terms of meetings, again, hybrid meetings are the new normal. Again, that comes as no surprise to anyone. But one thing I do want to mention here is Microsoft Teams Rooms. Now, once again, I don't know if anyone on this call within your office spaces have got conference rooms or boardrooms or collaboration spaces or anything like that. But some of you might have, and some of you might have some legacy conferencing solutions. Well, if you're looking to change out those conferencing solutions to something more modern, may I suggest Teams Rooms? And a couple of good reasons why. As part of my job, I travel quite a lot to customers and partners and all sorts. And sometimes I'll go and visit a customer and I'll be in their conferencing room and I'll be presenting a session on something or other. And they'll ask if they can use their conferencing system to broadcast my meeting, my session, to one of their other offices. Oh, yeah, that's no problem. And then I watch the chaos ensue as about 7 people try to figure out how to make that conferencing system work. Because the conferencing systems are normally either legacy or they're proprietary. They're from like Cisco or Poly, and no one really knows how to use it until they finally concede and call the IT guy over to get him to set it up and make the thing work. Now, that always baffled me. And if you are an organization that has legacy conferencing solutions, have a think about this. How many people in your organization actually know how to use the conferencing solutions that you have? Because those legacy conferencing solutions, or even proprietary modern conferencing solutions, the interface, the way that they work is completely different to the tools that we're used to using at our desks. And for many organizations, the tools that we're used to using at our desks is Microsoft Teams. So it doesn't really add up to a good return on investment to have a conferencing solution that is completely different to what all of your staff are already used to using, and maybe only 5% of your organization are going to get trained in how to use that conferencing system. Wouldn't it make much more sense to have a conferencing solution which is identical to what your teams use at their desks, Microsoft Teams, that anyone within your organization can walk into your conference room or your boardroom, whatever it is you might have, and then get to grips with the equipment because they already know how to use it. It's familiar. Everyone can use it. So it's incredibly inclusive. So that's one thing to consider if you are looking at changing out your conferencing solutions, or if you're looking at procuring a conferencing solution, please consider Microsoft Teams Rooms, because in terms of return on investment, if more of your staff can use it, that's surely got to be a good thing. And I think I've just mentioned all this stuff. So let's talk about the telephony side of things, because again, this is another really great element of Microsoft 365 is you do have the ability to add PSTN calling. So the ability to call outside of your organization, mobile phones, geographic landlines, international, that sort of stuff, adding that functionality into Teams. Because once again, calling back to the pandemic, that really shone a light on the inadequacies of some legacy and even some relatively modern VoIP phone systems. We found situations that when people were sent home, that was a problem because they were tied to a desk phone. Now, some people say, well, with modern VoIP solutions, you can do things such as call forwarding or something like that. And a lot of people did. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So we need something a lot more reliable. We need to give staff the ability to make and receive calls from any device and any location. A lot of legacy phone systems, you'll have to use multiple applications to make things work. Well, the whole idea from Microsoft is, again, not just have the ability to call from any device in any location, but any device that can basically run Microsoft Teams. So again, mobile phones, laptops, tablets, desktops, the list goes on. If you can run Microsoft Teams, effectively, you've got a phone system. Legacy on-prem PBXs, so phone servers, basically, they have costs attached to them, the TCO, the total cost of ownership. If any of you on this call do have a legacy on-prem PBX, you'll know that there are costs associated with that in terms of maintenance, upgrades, patching, and then inevitably replacing it when it gets old. With a cloud-based phone system, those are costs that you don't have to worry about, because again, Microsoft is going to handle all of the infrastructure for you. So that is not a cost or a headache you have to worry about anymore. And again, some phone systems will require you working with multiple vendors. Well, with Microsoft, you do have the option to have it just going through a single provider. If you want Microsoft just to be your phone provider as well as everything else, again, a single monthly cost would cover you for absolutely everything. Now, Teams Phone is relatively new. It only launched in November 2019. And when it launched, it was actually called Business Voice. Microsoft recently renamed it to Teams Phone. It was Business Voice before. I'm mentioning that because I do have a customer case study video, which I'd like to show you, which still has the old name attached to it. So whenever you hear Business Voice, don't worry, it is just Teams Phone. Now, I like this case study because first of all, it comes from the UK, which makes a nice change. It's from a company based in St Albans called Boston Limited. They're a server and storage company. And effectively, this is their story around how Business Voice has transformed the way that they work. Have a quick look at this.
Boston Limited is a server and storage solutions provider.
We've got about 200 employees currently, and we ship to about 40 countries. We can't do that without speaking to people on the phone.
Communication used to be a challenge. We were using legacy technologies, classic phone system, and then multiple tools to try and stay connected.
Microsoft 365 Business Voice is a small business phone system that operates from the cloud. It allows you to connect from any device, from any location, and has seamless integration with the full Microsoft 365 ecosystem.
It's like having a virtual office. You've got all the tools available to you in a single screen. People feel as if they are working together.
You've got the full support of chats, file sharing, meetings, and phone calls. You can start off a very simple phone call, and with a click of a button, you can enhance that to give you full video, high fidelity sound, screen sharing, and collaboration.
Having everything in one place means we save time. Time is money. If we can access that conversation, that email, that document on our mobile device, we can get that to a customer faster.
With Microsoft Teams and the integration into Outlook, our users can now load up their contact list, click a phone number, and immediately Microsoft Teams is dialing that person.
Microsoft is a brand name that's trusted, so it puts our minds at ease, but also for anyone that works with us as well.
Any admin, even non-technical users in many countries quickly create phone numbers and assign them to their users.
It's more than just a telephone replacement system. It's a full collaboration tool.
Microsoft 365 Business Voice is essential for me running my team. It's saving me time, and I have a calmer life now.
Okay, so that is Teams Phone, formerly Business Voice, and a lot of kind of key messages that come out of that video. But one of the ones that always sticks with me is when the managing director of that business says that this is more than just a phone replacement system. This is a full collaboration suite. And to me, that is perfectly the way to sum up Teams Phone. because if you're looking for a telephone replacement system, you might look at Teams Phone and think, well, that's quite expensive compared to some of the other telephony providers. But when you consider the value of Teams Phone, the fact that it integrates across everything within your Microsoft stack, and again, enhancing collaboration, suddenly the value is recognized and the cost, again, is justified. So again, if you're looking to enable true collaboration within your organization, then Teams Phone is absolutely something you should look at. And like I mentioned, one of the key things around Teams Phone is that flexibility around devices. Think how much money you could potentially save if you don't have to buy desk phones. If people's mobile phones or laptops or desktops, whatever, could be that person's company landline, how much money could potentially be saved? Now, that's not to say that you can't buy desk phones. If you want a Teams-enabled desk phone, absolutely. Those are available. A multitude of different manufacturers make Teams-enabled and Teams-certified phones that have small screens that give a very familiar Teams interface. But then you do have that flexibility to have that choice around devices. And whichever device you choose, whether it's mobile phone or whether it's laptop or desktop or tablet, you're going to have that same great familiar experience. And one of the things I really like about Teams Phone is that the learning curve is incredibly shallow. Some of you in the past may have bought new phone systems years back, or maybe even recently. How easy was that to get everyone trained up on the new phone system so they understood how to do everything, the functionality, everything else? Well, the thing about yes, hello.
Apologies, mate, and I'm sorry to stop you mid-flow because you're doing a fantastic job, but I've made a bit of a boo-boo. I told some of the customers it was a 3 o'clock start, and obviously it's 3:30, so they kind of had to shoot off shortly. But I know that there's plenty of other features that this could bring, and I was wondering if we could just, I know we've done Teams there to a bit, not to death, that's the wrong word to say, but is it possible we could just skip this one and move on to the other features just because of short of time? I apologies, please don't take that the wrong way.
No, of course.
It was me, I thought it was 3 o'clock start, and I had to message them all to say it's actually 3:30, which obviously reduces some of their availability.
Oh, of course. No, my apologies. Okay, no worries. Yes.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's my fault, and I apologise.
No worries. Okay, no worries.
Thank you.
All right, we will skip to the main part, which is around increasing security confidence. This is one of the key areas of Microsoft 365. And again, those consolidations, those doing more with less. And again, why is security such a key focus? Well, Microsoft has actually risen to be one of the world's best security companies. Currently, Microsoft is monitoring over 140 threat groups, 40 plus hostile nation states, analyzing over 43 trillion threat signals every single day. Now, why are they doing this? Well, because there has been over a 300% increase in ransomware attacks over the last year, with more than 50% of those being targeted at small business. Now, we've got some stats. 1 in 4 SMBs state that they had a security breach in the last year. So again, the statistics show us that attackers, they don't discriminate. They don't care how big or small your business is. If you've got data or information which they could potentially make money out of, holding it for ransom, selling it, whatever it might be, they will use whatever tools they have got at their disposal to get that from you. So the whole idea with Microsoft 365 is to give you a layered approach when it comes to security around things such as identity, device, applications, and documents. So I just want to run through some of the key pillars of security in M365 Business Premium, focusing on these key areas: enable secure access and protecting identity, defending against cyber threats and data loss, and easily securing and managing devices. So let's start off with the first one, which is enabling secure access and protecting identity. Now, Microsoft 365 is fixed for helping us protect against certain things, such as lost and stolen passwords, secure access to work applications, and enabling remote desktop access. Does anyone know what what is within any organization of any size, what is always the the weakest link when it comes to security? Any thoughts? You can type into the chat if you don't want to shout it out. Weakest link in terms of security within any business.
Mobiles.
Mobiles. Oh, Simon's got it. Well done, Simon. Yeah, straight away. It's always the people. Is absolutely right. They are the weakest link. And you know what? A lot of the time, it's because people get to do things such as choose their own passwords, for example. And for a bonus point, anyone here, does anyone want to take a wild stab at what today is still the most used password in the world? It's a depressing answer.
Password one or 1 2 3 4. It's got to be.
It is. It's password or a variant on that. Password 1, password 1 2 3. And it's of little wonder that because of that fact, 80% of network breaches are due to weak or stolen credentials. Now, Microsoft 365 includes things such as MFA or multi-factor authentication. I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with MFA and what it is, what it does. But effectively, MFA is there to stop passwords from being that single point of failure. That even if an attacker were to steal your password without the secondary authentication method, whether it be something like a mobile phone or an oath token or some form of biometrics, the password on its own would be useless. And the interesting thing around MFA is one of the simplest yet one of the most effective things you can do as an organization to protect yourselves against identity-based attacks. In fact, 99.9% of identity-based attacks can be stopped in their tracks just by implementing MFA alone. Now, of course, Microsoft isn't the only company that makes MFA solutions. There's loads of them out there. Some of you on this call might be using Microsoft for your MFA. Some of you might be using third-party solutions. And there's nothing wrong with the third-party solutions. They're very good at what they do. But remember what I said at the beginning, the two things we're looking to cut down on is cost and complexity. Third-party MFA solutions, yes, they might be good, but again, they do have an associated cost. Cisco Duo, off the top of my head, I think that was around £2.40 per user per month. Very good MFA solution, £2.40 per user per month. Doesn't sound like a lot, does it? But, you know, scale that up over all of your users. 50, 100, 200, 300 users. Suddenly, something that costs only a couple of quid is now costing your company hundreds of pounds for just a single product. And a lot of these third-party MFA solutions, they are proprietary. You need to know how to manage and set them up and configure it to get it to work with everything else within your infrastructure. So there is a certain element of complexity that goes around it. The thing is with Microsoft's MFA, the fact that this is included as part of your license, and the fact that one of the unique propositions of everything security in Microsoft is everything is designed to work with one another. So again, you don't have to shoehorn these solutions to make it work with this, that, or the other, because they are designed and built out the box to do so. So it can save you a significant amount of time in terms of configuration, management, and deployment. And speaking about things working together, we've also got this feature as well, again, included in M365 Business. And it's called conditional access. This is to make sure that the right people get the right access. So let's say, for example, I want to sign in to Office 365 and I want to do it from my laptop. I'm working from home. So I sign in with my username, password, and that's it. I've got access. Now, the difference with conditional access is if you are trying to sign into something within your organization, whether it's Office or Azure or any of your line of business applications, conditional access will scrutinize every login attempt, making sure you meet certain conditions before access could be granted. And I won't run through all of these, but for example, things such as your location, for example, where in the world are you signing in from? And this would be identified by your IP address. Is it an IP address that we know? Is it an IP address that is trusted? You can set up certain conditions that say things, for example, don't allow access to any IP addresses that come from certain countries, for example. Now, what would happen if I was working abroad? I've gone on a business trip over to sunny Spain, and whilst I'm there, I need to do a bit of work, so I need to sign in. But when I do, conditional access notices that my location is actually somewhere else. It's not actually in the UK. Now, does conditional access know this is me? Well, no. No one knows if this is actually me. How do we know some hacker in Spain hasn't stolen my credentials and is now trying to sign in as me? Well, conditional access will then call on MFA to get me to prove that I am who I claim to be. Now, if MFA is satisfied, then access will be allowed and I'll be able to access whatever infrastructure I was trying. If it doesn't, it can then block access to make sure that I wouldn't be able to get access from working from that location. It also goes for things such as devices as well. Is this a device that is known and trusted? I could set up a condition that says only people using their company laptop can access internal infrastructure. So I could do that. I could also set conditions that say don't grant access to devices that aren't updated with the latest version of Windows 11, for example. Effectively, this just gives you as an organization full control over who can come into your business and under what conditions. And again, that's a lot of control that organizations have. And especially in a world with flexible hybrid work, we need to be 110% sure that everyone that enters our internal infrastructure is the person that they claim to be. And conditional access is going to help companies like you manage that particular issue. Now, one of the other things around access is something called Azure Virtual Desktop. Some of you might have heard of Azure Virtual Desktop. Some of you might be using virtual desktop solutions yourselves at the moment, whether it be things such as Citrix or VMware, or maybe even RDS. Well, Azure Virtual Desktop is available, giving you Windows 10 or 11 desktops. It supports something called multi-session. Effectively, that means I can have multiple users being serviced by a single virtual machine. That means I don't need to assign virtual machines to each individual user. And again, a really cost-effective way of doing it. Now, why am I talking about Azure Virtual Desktop when this is a session around Microsoft 365? Well, the reason is a lot of people are already eligible to use Azure Virtual Desktop. If you have one of the following licenses, Microsoft 365 E3 or E5, the academic SKUs, if anyone's a school, F3, which is our frontline worker, or specifically Microsoft 365 Business Premium, that means that your Azure Virtual Desktop license is included as part of M365 Business Premium. This means you can use Azure Virtual Desktop for no additional licensing costs. So if you are using any kind of virtualization at the moment, how much do you spend on licensing? And could you save that money by moving your virtual desktop workloads into utilizing Microsoft 365 to move those virtual desktop workloads into Azure Virtual Desktop? And even if you're utilizing RDS, for example, consider how many licenses you need to utilize RDS. You need an RDS license with software assurance, a server OS license, a version of Office which is compatible with RDS. Well, all of that licensing is included in Microsoft 365, again, saving you a considerable amount of money. And of course, from a functionality standpoint, Azure Virtual Desktop is the best virtual desktop infrastructure you can currently use. That should come as no surprise to anyone. Microsoft makes Windows, Microsoft makes Azure, so it stands to reason they could create the best virtual service of their own platform than any of the other competitors. So not only a great service, but also a potentially great cost saving as well. Now, do you need virtual desktop? Well, if any of you work in any of the areas that may be bound by security or regulation, if you have elastic workforces, if you have employees who use things such as BYOD, for example, then absolutely Azure Virtual Desktop is something which you could consider, allowing people to work flexibly from any location, any device, literally any device. So being able to use Windows virtual desktop on things such as Macs or tablets or even mobile phones. You can literally have a Windows desktop on literally any device. So again, a huge amount of flexibility. And of course, everything that happens in that virtual session is secure as well. We've had examples of the NHS utilizing Azure Virtual Desktop because it allows their staff to work from home, but at the same time, everything that happens in the virtual session cannot be copied onto the physical device. So meeting a lot of standards for security and compliance. So if you fall into any of those kind of key categories, reach out to the guys at Digital Origin to see how Azure Virtual Desktop can benefit you. The next thing is around defending against cyber threats and data loss. Now, one of the most common attack vectors that we see today is emails, specifically phishing emails. And we've all seen phishing emails before, and they can be quite easy to dismiss. You know, you see the phishing emails, and we all see them. Sometimes when I'm bored, I just go onto my junk email in my old Outlook just to have a look and a little chuckle at some of the phishing emails. There you go. There's an insight into my dull life. But a lot of the times we can easily dismiss them. You know, phishing emails, they often have spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes. They'll be using the old logo of the company they're pretending to be. But phishing attacks, unfortunately, have become a lot more sophisticated over the last few years. Attackers utilizing things such as social engineering, information they can find on websites such as LinkedIn to launch targeted attacks against either individuals or organizations. So what can Microsoft 365 do to help protect against these email-borne threats? And you know what I mean? A lot of us within, you know, when you send and receive emails, you'll often get that little bit of text across the top of the screen that says, do not open attachments or links from anyone you don't recognize. Well, even though we try our best, things still happen. Sometimes someone will click on a link or an attachment in an email without thinking. Sometimes they'll be tricked into clicking on a link or an attachment because it looks like this email has come from someone who is trusted, where it's been an email that's been spoofed. So what can M365 do to protect against this sort of situation if someone were to accidentally click on a link or an attachment? Well, we've got this, which is Defender for Office 365. And effectively what this means is, imagine you received an email that's asking you to click a link. And let's pretend that it's early in the morning, you haven't had your coffee, and without thinking, you just click on the link and open it. Now, without any kind of protection in place, that could launch a whole cascade of horrible things to happen. In fact, some of the most successful ransomware attacks, global ransomware outbreaks, all began with someone opening an email. So, what can Defender Office 365 do to protect? Well, if you were to click on a link or an attachment that's been sent through to you, Office 365 will open it. It will open the link, and it will open the attachment, but it opens it in a virtualized, isolated environment, almost like a detonation chamber. And when it opens that link or an attachment, the AI-powered attachment scanning goes to work. It's looking for anything suspicious about that link. Is it trying to install something? Is it trying to make a change? Is it trying to run a script? Is it trying to do something that links or attachments shouldn't normally do? And if it detects anything that it doesn't like the look of, anything suspicious, it will immediately flash this up on the screen, telling you that whatever it is you've tried to do, whether it's a web link or whether it's an attachment, whatever it is, has been deemed as malicious, and it won't allow you to go any further. I know it does say here continue anyway. IT administrators can remove that to make sure that this would be the point it stops. And again, everything is contained within that virtual environment. As soon as I close this window, the attack is effectively removed, it's deleted. But all the details of that potential attack attempt is then fed back to your IT administrators. Within the M365 Security Center, they have visibility over what just happened. They can see at 8 a.m. you opened an email that triggered this response from Defender for Office 365. And IT administrators can then investigate. They can look further into it. Is this an isolated incident? Has anyone else in the company received the same email that you had? Does this mean that we are actually in the midst of a spear phishing attack on our organization? And we've seen examples of where Defender for Office 365 has really helped businesses. You'll all be familiar with AstraZeneca, you know, the pharmaceutical company, which did great work during the pandemic. Well, at the end of 2020, AstraZeneca was hit with a targeted spear phishing attack against their organization. And it was because of Defender for Office 365 that the users were kept safe and the IT administrators were notified immediately. The IT administrators were able to take action to be able to remediate this threat, batten down the hatches, remove these emails from their Exchange server, block those senders from sending more of this rubbish into the business, and effectively give the IT administrators much greater scope to be able to protect their own borders. But one of the other elements of security, which is often overlooked, is protection around documents. So here's a question for you. You don't have to answer this one like out loud, but have a think in your heads. What have you got in place within your organizations to stop people from sending potentially confidential or sensitive information about your business outside of the organization? Aside from, you know, a stiff rollicking and a disciplinary, probably, what is physically in place to stop it? Now, some of you might have some tools in place, maybe some things around DLP, maybe some of you have got some third-party tools. Well, the fact is, you'll be amazed how many people out there don't have any kind of protection around document security. There would be nothing to stop an employee from emailing themselves their personal email address, a sensitive company document that they could take somewhere else or send to a competitor or something like that. Azure Information Protection is designed to stop this kind of threat by giving organizations the ability to classify and label data based on its sensitivity. So when you enable Azure Information Protection, or AIP, it works across Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and even PDF and Adobe documents as well. Now, the whole idea is when you set this up, this is how it looks out the box. You can reconfigure this to be whatever you want, but out the box, whenever you go into like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, whatever it is, you'll have this sensitivity banner across the top of the screen. And then you can apply a policy to the document. For example, I've got the examples of personal, public, general, confidential, highly confidential. And depending on what this document is, I can select the appropriate policy. So let's say, for example, I want to share this super secret document with all of you. We all work for the same company and I want to share that document. So before I do, because I don't want this document being shared outside of the business, I'm going to mark this document as confidential. And when I do so, it embeds the data of the security into the metadata of the document itself. Essentially, this means that the security is embedded into the document itself. Wherever the document goes, the security is embedded. That means that even if this document was sent to someone who doesn't use Microsoft 365 or doesn't have AIP, the security is still there. So wherever this document goes, it will be secure. And so this is awesome. This means that I can share confidential information within my organization without having to worry about it leaking outside of the business. Now, some people have said to me, well, what about taking a photograph of the screen, for example, if I took a photograph of the screen? Well, yes, currently that is a slight fly in the ointment, but Microsoft are working on a solution. Microsoft recently announced a new feature into Azure Virtual Desktop that when people are working on confidential workloads, the screen will be covered in faint yet quite visible QR codes. So the whole idea with Azure Information Protection, at some point when you are viewing a confidential document, there'll be a faint watermark of QR codes across the screen which identifies you and your device. So if this document were to suddenly wind up on the front page of the Daily Mail, it wouldn't take much effort to scan that QR code and find out who and what device that document came from. That is not available yet. That will be coming soon, but that's going to be a big deterrent for people taking a photograph of the screen. But we can take Azure Information Protection a step even further. So we spoke about how we can narrow things down to just people within our organization, but I can also set controls around what people can and can't do with documents once they have them in their possession. For example, if I had the same secret document again, but this time I marked it as highly confidential, and like I said, you can configure these policies however you want. This is just for an example. Highly confidential in this example could mean that you can view this document if you work for this company, but you can't save a copy of it. You can't take a screenshot. You can't print it. You can't display this document on a Teams call or a Skype call or a Zoom call or a WebEx. It would mean effectively you can't copy and paste this document to a USB stick, all kinds of stuff. And you know what?
Yeah, just to clarify on that. So if I'm viewing a document on my iPhone,
yes,
and I want to take a screenshot of it, how is that done through the phone then? How does it stop the iPhone from taking a screenshot?
So if it's a sensitive document that you're viewing, it stops. Have you ever tried to take a screenshot of your banking application? Your banking application, your bank or Netflix, for example.
Yeah, I've done it. I've screenshot of my bank because when people say to me, "What's your bank details?" and I just take I log in, take a screenshot of the top bit, and then send
some of them don't. Some of them don't allow it. So you can have it enabled. So if you try and take screenshots of corporate managed applications, that it will black screen.
So if I'm viewing my our Digital Origins corporate document, so say for example sensitive information that I'm allowed to have access to on my phone, Excel opens up and I try to take a screenshot from my iPhone. Are you saying that the iPhone will it will block me being able to take a screenshot?
Yeah, because that's in the app. So the screenshot will not allow it to take place, because again, you can configure that as part of your endpoint management policies.
Right. So despite the device that you access it on, the device will block it.
The device will block it, and not only will it block it, it will then grass you up to the document owner.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's again, that's one of the key deterrents of this, that if you screenshot corporate data either on a mobile device, tablet, a laptop, whatever it might be, it will send a notification back to the document owner to tell that person that this person just tried to take a screenshot on their device and it didn't work.
Right. Okay.
So it's a great deterrent to make sure that people aren't tempted to screenshot corporate information on devices. So again, Azure Information Protection, all included as part of M365 Business Premium. And we will circle back to this in a moment, because again, that was a really good point that was raised about the mobile phone. So again, if you are trying to take a screenshot of a protected document on a mobile device, again, the same things will happen. But I'll circle back to that when we get to the device management bit. Is anyone familiar with this cloud with the term shadow IT? Sorry, has anyone heard of shadow IT before?
Hi, Ed, as well. I've had a couple of my customers had to jump off at 4:30 because they thought it's 3 till 4:30. So apologies.
Oh, no.
I think we've got a couple of other customers still on the call. So, but yeah, so apologies for that.
That's all right. No worries. We can always share the recording. We can always share the recording.
That's what I was going to ask, because I've also, like I said, the two customers came to our premises at 1:30 that were supposed to be on it. Like, look, is there any way we can record it? And I said, I'll ask Ed when I'm on it.
Yeah.
So if we can share it, that'd be super.
Absolutely. Yeah, that won't be a problem, I'm sure.
Okay. So sorry, mate, I interrupted your question.
That's all right.
No, let you know, because
worries.
I saw them drop off.
Okay, no worries. How many? Who have we got left? Who have we got left on there?
We still got Matt and Luke.
Hey, Matt and Luke, fantastic. Excellent, fantastic. Right, okay. So, shadow IT. in case you're not aware, shadow IT, it's first of all, it sounds more sinister than what it is. Shadow IT is effectively when someone within an organization is utilizing applications or services that are not sanctioned by their IT department. Now, some people might say, well, what's the problem with that? Lots of people use lots of different tools. They're just trying to get their work done more effectively. And, fair enough, that's to be applauded. But shadow IT can bring significant risks. For example, if I started using my own personal, Google Cloud, my Google Drive, to start saving company information, because I can easily use Google Drive. I've been using it for years. I'm very comfortable with it. And I prefer using it to OneDrive or SharePoint. Let's say that's what I believed. And so I just start using Google Drive. I'm saving customer information, data, all that sort of stuff into my Google Drive. I can access it from anywhere. It allows me to be more effective at my job. But what's the problem with doing that? Well, obviously, I'm saving corporate data into a cloud which is not managed by my business. Now, first of all, that is definitely going against anyone's corporate policy. Secondly, it's absolutely going against GDPR. If Google Cloud or wherever I'm storing that, if that data was to be compromised and it got out into the public, then who do you reckon is going to get in trouble? Me or my company? It's the company. The company would get in trouble. They were the ones entrusted with the data, and I've been storing it on an unmanaged cloud account. That puts my company in the crosshair of a beatdown from the GDPR folk. So again, I'm pretty sure a lot of organizations want to make sure that all of their data that they've been entrusted with, either with customers or whether it's sensitive IP, that it remains within control of the business. Some people might even be using things such as WhatsApp, for example. And there's nothing wrong with having, a lot of us within companies have got like a chat groups within WhatsApp, and there's nothing wrong with that if you're using it to plan what pub you're going to go to on Friday after work, if you're planning what fancy dress it's going to be for the Christmas party, that's fine. But when you start using something like WhatsApp and you start sending corporate information on it, again, that's where it becomes an issue with shadow IT. And again, a lot of people do this. But the big question is, how do you know? How do you know if this is happening within your organization? How do you know there aren't employees that are using lots of different applications that potentially are putting your company at risk of breach of GDPR and potentially putting you at risk of cyber threats? If some people are using certain applications on their work devices that could then potentially introduce threats into the business, the big question, how do you know? So this is where this tool comes in, and it's called Cloud App Discovery. This gives your organization visibility over what applications and services are being used within your business. Now, there's a lot going on this slide, so I'll just focus on the key areas. Here we've got our discovered apps. Now, everything in green, that's sanctioned. Okay, so that's cool. That's the stuff we know about. They're the managed applications, and everything that's up in red is unsanctioned. These are applications which have not been signed off by the IT department, but staff are using anyway. Now, what applications are they using? Well, again, we can see a list of a couple of the ones that have been highlighted there. And if you don't know what those applications are, don't worry. We don't expect every organization to have an encyclopedic knowledge of every single piece of web software and application that exists. If you don't know what Mega is, for example, you can just click on it from there. And Cloud App Discovery will tell you what that application is, what it's for, and how secure we believe it is. I can tell you that Mega is a public file sharing site, often used for piracy, for movies, music, software, and it's got a very low security score. So if I was to see something like that, then at least I know about it. But knowing about it isn't enough. I can then use tools within things such as Defender for Business and Cloud App Discovery to then block access to that application. If I don't want people using that stuff anymore on their corporate device, I can block those applications. So again, this giving organizations visibility into shadow IT use within their organization, helping them mitigate risk, and again, making sure their infrastructure is as secure and safe as it can be. And again, all of this included with Microsoft 365 Business Premium. And then we've got managing devices. So I want to talk about Endpoint Manager. Now, Endpoint Manager is a part of Microsoft Intune. And effectively, this is a tool to manage devices. So, and devices, whether they are laptops, desktops, tablets, mobile phones, this allows you a lot of control over those devices and what can be done on those devices. Now, you'll notice there's two different flavors of Endpoint Manager. We've got MDM and we've got MAM. So what is the difference between the two? So effectively, MDM is mobile device management. Now, this scenario would more typically be used for companies that have provided assets to their employees. So, for example, if I've given my employees company mobile phones, for example, MDM is going to allow me as the business to completely manage that device. So, for example, I could, if the device was lost or stolen, I could erase all the data from that device. I can encrypt all the data on the device. I can lock the device. I can force people to use more complex passwords and pins. If I don't want people downloading certain applications onto their company issue devices, like TikTok, for example, I'm sure you've seen all that stuff about the UK government banning TikTok on politicians' company phones. That's how they're doing it. They're doing it through something like MDM. They're using that to block certain applications. And if I wanted to do that as a business owner, I could do the same thing through MDM. Now, this is fine if it's a company owned asset. Probably not so much of a good idea if this is BYOD. So if you've got people within your organization that use their own personal mobile phones for work, a policy such as MDM probably wouldn't go down as well. Because personally, I mean, I use my own personal mobile phone for work, and I don't want my organization having the ability to erase all of my data from my device at the drop of a hat. I don't want my organization to be able to dictate what applications and services I can and can't use on my personal mobile phone that I spent my money on. And Microsoft agrees with this. So that's why we've got this option here, which is MAM, which is Mobile Application Management. This would be used typically more for BYOD scenarios because it doesn't give the organization control over the device. Instead, it gives the organization control over the company managed applications on the device. So if I can just illustrate what I mean by that, let's just pretend this is my mobile phone. And when I enroll it into MAM, effectively it creates what we call a multi-identity policy. That's just a very fancy way of saying data separation between the managed applications and the personal applications. Now, it's worth mentioning at this point that with MAM, the organization doesn't have any visibility over any of the personal applications on the device. The only thing you can see is your managed company owned applications. You can see them, but it doesn't mean you can access them. You know, you don't get carte blanche when it comes to personal privacy, but you can see the applications that you own. So this means that, say, for example, I woke up one morning and I thought, I don't want to work at this job anymore. I quit. Then I phone up my boss, say, yep, I'm not coming back. I quit. He can phone up IT, Ed's leaving, and they can just erase that part of the device, leaving all of my personal data completely untouched. So again, it really is the best of both worlds. Organizations don't have to procure expensive devices for staff, yet they still have full control over their managed applications. But what about the data on the device? Well, say, for example, I receive an email and that email contains a Word document. Now, I can save that Word document into my corporate OneDrive. Of course I can, because, you know, it's all part of the managed applications. But what if I tried to save that Word document into my personal Google Drive or whatever it might be? Is that going to work? Well, the answer, surprisingly, is no. You cannot save corporate managed data into a personal application. The only place where data that has come through a managed application can be saved is into another corporately managed application. Okay. And again, for those of you that are thinking screenshot, again, don't forget we mentioned Azure information protection earlier as well. So documents that have got policies that don't allow things such as screenshotting, again, that will not work if you try and do that on the device. And of course, it's going to tell the document owner. But again, this just ensures that corporate data can be kept secure even when it's on a personal device. So I don't know what BYD policies you guys, Matt and Luke, have currently got in place, if it's anything like this, but this is absolutely worth considering. And of course, it is included as part of Microsoft 365. What time was this session supposed to end? Can I just double check that, because I'm all skew-if now with timings. Sorry.
Yes, same with me, and I'm unsure of it. But we still got Luke, and Luke just asked the question there. I don't know if you'd seen that come through.
Oh,
it was due to finish at 5, by the way.
It's due to finish at 5.
Yeah.
Okay, right. I better pick up the pace then in that case.
The meeting's actually in until 5:30. If you wanted to go over, you've got that option.
I don't know if anyone will be able to do that. I know my customer's got to jump out. We're supposed to jump at 4:30, but he's still here. But yeah, I think Luke asked a question now. I don't know if you managed to pick that up.
Oh, sorry. I see on MAM only works on Office app. No. It works third-party apps as well, Luke, as long as they are applications that are managed by the business. So even things such as, like Salesforce, stuff like that, if they're owned and managed by the business, that would count as a corporate managed app. So, for example, if I was to download Salesforce from the Apple App Store and I sign into that app with my corporate credentials to access it, that is then a managed application. So it's not just third party; it will be third party SaaS applications as well. But no, great question, Luke. Okay, right. Defender for Business. I'm gonna have to pick up the pace a little bit on this one, but I just want to highlight a couple of areas which I just find incredibly interesting. And one of the reasons that Microsoft is really doubling down on security in products such as Microsoft 365 with the addition of things such as Defender for Business. Now, just a quick bit of history. Defender for Business is a derivative of Defender for Endpoint. Now, Defender for Endpoint was the E5 version of endpoint security, like E5 being the all singing, all dancing. A lot of I think it's like 90% of like Fortune 500s use things such as Defender for Endpoint and E5 and stuff like that because of the really high standards of security that it brought. So basically, Microsoft took Defender for Endpoint, that E5 all singing, all dancing. They tweaked it ever so slightly. They didn't really remove anything. They just simplified it and then brought it into M365 Business Premium. That means that small to medium businesses can now enjoy the same level of endpoint enterprise grade security that some of the world's largest global conglomerates use themselves. And the reason that Microsoft decided to do this, take this enterprise product and add it into an SMB plan, is because the threat landscape has changed so much. You don't have to be a skilled attacker or anything anymore. If you want to launch an attack, you can literally go onto the dark web and you can just buy attacks. And I just find this absolutely amazing. Every time I look at it, the fact that with no skills, apart from knowing how to hold a credit card and use a Tor browser, you can go onto the dark web and basically buy attacks. And we've actually seen that, I saw this on LinkedIn a little while ago. It said that a lot of the organized crime groups, global organized crime groups, are moving out of the drugs trade and moving into the cybercrime trade because it's more profitable. And again, this is not career advice for anyone, but it just shows that cybercrime is so profitable that even global crime lords are moving into this market because it makes so much money. And that means that, again, organizations, they have to be ready. And that's the whole idea behind Defender for Business, making sure that organizations have got the highest standards of security. Defender for Business gives enterprise-grade protection. It's designed to be easy to use, and it's cost-effective because it's included as part of M365 Business Premium. Now, Defender for Business isn't just one thing. It's actually 5 things, all under a single umbrella. Things such as threat and vulnerability management, attack surface reduction, next-gen protection, endpoint detection and response, and auto investigation and remediation. I'll just quickly run through some of these areas just so you've got an idea of what they are and what they're for. So the first thing is threat and vulnerability management, which is a risk-based approach to security within your infrastructure. Let's imagine our organization as a house, as a building. All the security that we've spoken about up until this point, things such as MFA, conditional access, all that sort of stuff, that has been what we would call outside the house security, you know, like putting up gates and fences and locks on doors, that sort of stuff. That is kind of all designed to keep people out. But what if someone gets in? What if someone gets past those defenses and actually gets into our house? How do we detect that someone is actually in there? Well, again, this is what Defender for Endpoint is designed to do. Threat and vulnerability management is a bit like inspector round to our house, and effectively he'll walk around the house looking for any damage to the structure. If there's any kind of holes in the wall, maybe there's a broken window that an attacker could climb through, or maybe you could scurry through that open vent down near the floor, that sort of thing. And threat and vulnerability management, if it notices anything that could potentially be a threat or be an exposure, it will notify IT administrators and give them the tools they need to be able to block up that hole in the wall, to put that new pane of glass in the window, to make sure the structure is secure. And then we've got things like attack surface reduction. And again, this is around the areas in which our organization could potentially be vulnerable. And again, consider our house once again. This would be like getting a security consultant round to our house and making sure that everyone in the family has got the right set of keys to be able to open the door. Maybe there were some people who used to live at the house that still have keys for some reason. Well, let's get those keys back off those people because they don't live here anymore. So let's get those keys back. It will also recommend, you know, adding new locks to the windows, that sort of thing. And again, doing all of that without disrupting the business. Now, there are a lot of areas of attack surface reduction where vulnerabilities can be found, especially in software. Certain software and applications do have vulnerabilities that could be exploited. And attack surface reduction will help you identify those areas of vulnerability and reducing that attack surface area. And next generation protection also ties into that as well. So Defender for Business uses behavioral real-time sensors. Effectively, Defender for Business builds a real-time character profile around its users. So it learns about you. So Matt and Luke, if you had Defender for Business within your organization, it learns about you as users. What time of day do you normally sign in? What devices do you frequently use? You know, that sort of stuff. And it builds up this character profile of what you look like as a user. So if suddenly, like, let's say Matt, or let's say or Luke, Matt, I'll call on you for another one. Let's say Luke, who uses his device from, say, 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. most days. Suddenly, Luke is signing in on weird devices that we've never seen before in the middle of the night. Okay, well, straight away, that is weird behavior. Luke never does that. Luke only works during work hours. He's not working throughout the night. I don't know, Luke, maybe you do, but in this example, you don't. So effectively, if it detects anything that looks suspicious, anything that could be, could show that maybe Luke's identity has been compromised, it's going to notify IT administrators. Now, believe it or not, the industry average from an attack happening to the attack being discovered, that's 200 days. Shocking, I know. 200 days between the attack happening and the customer realizing. That is way too long. You cannot afford to wait 200 days to find out that you were breached. Because when you do, your customers, they're going to lose faith in you. They're going to abandon you. You're going to get fined by the GDPR folk, all that sort of stuff. We've seen it happen with TalkTalk. It happened to them a few years back. They had a breach. They had an attacker in their infrastructure for over a year. Their customers abandoned them, and they came very close to the brink of collapse. No business wants that. They need to know immediately when things happen. And again, next generation protection is going to give organizations like yours that kind of visibility. Endpoint detection and response. This is like having CCTV within our house. So if we've got an attacker lurking through the corridors and hallways of our structure, the cameras will detect the movement, pick up the attacker, and notify the IT administrators. And again, notifying immediately, and be able to identify what type of attack it is and give it a rating on level of severity, allowing IT administrators to take appropriate action. But my favorite is this: auto investigation and remediation. Just like before, an attacker breaks into our house, the CCTV cameras pick him up, the motion trackers, they pick him up. But instead of just alerting the IT administrator, imagine our house has got an alarm system which is connected to the local police station. So as soon as the cameras and the motion detectors detect the thief in our house, the local police station, they're notified, they arrive on the scene immediately, and they get the apprehend the thief and cart him away to jail. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't even have to get out of bed. I just lay in bed while all this happened downstairs. And effectively, that is what auto investigation and remediation does. It deals with these threats for you. As an IT administrator, I don't have to get involved. I can just leave auto investigation to investigate and respond appropriately to each attack. And it doesn't just respond in a generic way, like detect, quarantine. It will detect and it will respond to each individual attack in a very unique and specific way. In fact, the same way that a human IT analyst would do so. So some really smart stuff. So again, if you don't have the time of day, or if your company, you don't have the resource to have IT in-house managing this stuff all day, every day. And let's be honest, a lot of companies don't. The IT administrator isn't just dealing with security, they're dealing with everything else as well. So if I could hand over a lot of my security management over to effectively RoboCop for cybersecurity, then surely that's got to be a great thing. And if I was an IT administrator, I'd be all over this. Some people might question, is Microsoft really that good? Well, according to SE Labs, AV Tests, and AV Comparatives, Microsoft is actually one of the best security companies you can currently use. Microsoft is actually recognized by Gartner, Forrester, the IDC as being one of the world's best security companies. A lot of people don't think Microsoft when they think of security, but believe it or not, Microsoft has really risen to the top with some of these incredibly innovative devices, innovative tools, sorry. Okay, very last thing, I promise. How can M365 help on saving costs? Well, this is kind of reiterating where we started earlier. So there's the cost of Business Standard, £11.28 on a monthly basis, and M365 Business Premium, £19.92 on a monthly basis. And again, that's a cost difference of £8.64. And all of those security solutions that we've just mentioned, again, you can't buy all of this stuff here from third parties for less than that. You just can't do it. I've tried, and I think the cheapest I managed to get it was around 40 quid just for the security solutions. So again, being able to have that level of security for only £8.64 more than Business Standard, again, that is a huge bargain. You could even consider trying to build your own. For example, some people have said, hey, Google Workspace, that's much cheaper than M365 Business Premium. And yes, it is. It's significantly cheaper. But again, things like Google Workspace doesn't come with all of those advanced security features we mentioned earlier. You might need to buy things such as Mimecast for your email and web protection, Okta for identity management, VMware for endpoint management, TeamViewer for remote desktop access, CrowdStrike for endpoint detection and response. And if you were to buy all of that separately, you're looking at around £53 per user per month for all of that. Whereas M365 Business Premium, more than just Office, can give you all of that for less than £20 per user per month.